Well, thank you everyone for coming. This is now the fourth day of the London Build Station. It's open every single day, so you guys are through here to co-work 24/7 until May 11th. Each day we're doing a little fireside chat, doing some lovely roast later today. Next week will be pretty fun. It's going to be co-hosted by different members, so stay tuned for that. And today I'm excited to be joined by Harry, CEO of Flight3. Why don't Harry just... I'm sure quite a few people know you, but why don't you give yourself a little bit of introduction and tell everyone a little bit about you?
Hi Cap. Well, firstly, thanks for having me, and thank you everyone for giving up your building time to listen to me. I'm Harry, and I'm lucky enough that, so my background is I used to run big events, music festivals, and as music festivals scale, they actually make less money because in B2C events, when you're selling to like consumers rather than, business events, 85% is normally break even. So as the festival was scaling, and it was amazing, it's still going 13 years later, and it was it's like my first baby. I was lucky enough to work as an intern in a VC, and they're like, can you organize a Bitcoin event? So this is 2013, and it was really hard work, and I met a guy called Paul Gordon, and I'd been using Bitcoin for a while actually, just messing around with it at uni, and then when I studied economics and politics, and when Paul explained to me what Bitcoin was, I just went, oh my God, this is it. And at that stage, we would try and corner people and be like, have you heard it? And they're like, who is this mad person? And seeing the progress, and I was working for Facebook in 2016-17 we were in Brazil, and someone told me about ETH. And I called up my brother and I was like, buy as much ETH as we can. I didn't really know what it was. And obviously seeing that journey. So I was lucky enough to work for an exchange because after 2014, Bitcoin crash, I was like, oh God, this is crazy. And went back into sort of, I didn't give up hope. I was like, stopped following it for about 2 years. 2016, when the Bitcoin price went back to the old 2013 price, I was like, oh my God, do I still have my wallet? Have I still got it here? So you always store your things. And then it took about at that stage, people didn't really need marketing. I don't know if people remember 2016, 2017. You were trying to get onto the exchanges and there was a wait list. There was no on Fido. It was like a long wait. And so it took a while to get a role. And then I got one of the first marketing roles for a company called Luno, which is kind of like the Coinbase of South Africa, like a really easy onboarding. And we went from about 300,000 users to 10 million by the time I left. And that was an amazing sort of journey of onboarding people and sort of in a compliant way. But COVID hit and I was like, hang on a moment, I've got more and more jazzy titles, but I've got less and less importance. And that sort of itch to sort of build came about, and that's when we launched a prediction market. It was like a non-punitive prediction market, and it went amazingly. It launched, but at the time, and one of the reasons why we love Sol is Ethereum was like $80 to transact in and out. So you staked to predict what the price of Bitcoin would be, and there'd be a 3% burn, and then you'd win a Bitcoin prize and a staking reward, so you didn't actually lose. But the problem was, the 3% burn fee didn't cover the in and out. So anyway, that went okay. It failed inevitably, but I learned a lot. And out of that, people were like, oh, can you help us build this? Can you help us build that? And that's kind of how we started what was Zebu Digital. And so Zebu means always bullish, zero bullshit, and it's a bull from Southern Africa, I believe. So Zebu really was kind of what we wanted to be, which was the web3 native agency, but like at the standard of a Saatchi and Saatchi or a Mother, because why are all these projects that are raising $100 million, $1 billion using such bad agencies? And I'm not saying we're good yet, but there was a real gap for like real marketing. And I think if we look at where we are now, the space has really changed. The sort of the paid shilling, the thing. So yeah, so we were lucky enough to exit Zebu, and then we became part of Flight3, and it's been great to be learn from that ecosystem. If not, mergers are complicated and tricky. But yeah, no, we're now operating as Flight3, and it's we just celebrated 5 years, and it's been 5 years in crypto when you're a service. And so the thing about being a bootstrap business is your runway is always about 3 months. So it's not like 3 months when you're building your startup and you're like, oh my God, we've got to raise in 3 months. It's a rolling 3 months if all of your clients stay on. But it is a constant pressure, especially in a world where we see mature businesses, they don't necessarily run out of money, but they're mature enough to like cover costs. And the thing about an agency, it's very, you have a contract, you get 30 days, 60 days. So it's very easy to be like, goodbye, we're cutting costs. So that's a little bit of how we got here. And I'm a huge fan of what you're building, Stevie.
Well, what you're talking about there is that full journey from where you was able to first find it like over a decade ago, where there was no one else kind of there, and you got to experience that whole ride of it starting to move forward, and you got that deep experience within Luno, was able to grow within that, see that massive exponential growth, and then was able to then start taking all those learnings and helping other people start scaling out. So I think you've got a really cool, unique way of like seeing where the industry has been, where the industry is, because you're working with clients day and day. They're all doing different things, kind of spread across different areas. You talk about like that 3 month cycle. It means you always need to be like, what's the edge, what's coming, what's new? And then so you're constantly then thinking of like, what is forward? What's happening? What are you currently seeing at the moment that you can kind of share with some of the founders here of like the tactics that are working, the things that you're deploying, ways that you're seeing that like, okay, this is actually the opportunity, the angle, if I was building a startup now, how I would start marketing it and starting getting growth?
Yeah, so every time I build a new playbook, it's out of date. And that's how quickly Web3 is moving. And I think if I'm a founder now, what I'm really seeing is like authentic marketing. And you may not be able to compete with Ethereum or Solana in their budgets, or these Coinbases of the world. But what you can outcompete in, and the super team guys are really good at this, is your personal brand and showing up. And we've seen a move away from like, it was kind of crazy that we had like the industry was built on a lot of KOL marketing because one, we weren't allowed to use Google or Facebook. You would be instantly banned. So there was no paid channel. And two, there's no point talking to a normal person about an L2 DEX with MEV protection if they haven't even gone through the journey of making a wallet. A lot of time in marketing, when I was at Betfair, and we'd look at like, how can we get someone to make an account, deposit, place their first bet, their third bet. And it was the same at Luno. Like, it's quite a big gap for you to trust someone on the internet, firstly with your passport, then your credit card, then a deposit, and then actually trade. So to all of the cool products that everyone's building now on chain, and Solana really is on chain, and it's almost infrastructure now rather than just speculation. I think KOLs offered a way to talk to lots of people that had a very niche audience. I think by this token it's going to go up. Marketing is definitely ended, and we're seeing a lot more real life activation. More like we'd see in like if you were using a footballer, you'd have your brand in the background and there'd be brand recognition rather than this is amazing. And I think we saw a lot in 2021 when everyone would be like, we got a deal with Google. Well, we're using Google Cloud. And so we're seeing a lot more like deep partnerships where people are actually like, right, I'm doing this, we're doing this, let's actually integrate. And I think that's because the baseline tech is kind of built. I always think of an L1 is like your iPhone, the really hard lifting. And then when we're building all of our dApps and stuff on chain, we're more like in the App Store. So there's a lot more collabs with builders that are actually working. And I think the final thing is no one cares about your startup. I don't care. You obviously care, and the ability to keep showing up and keep respecting people's attention. But the first testing of what works for your audience. Lots of people ask me, should I be on Reddit? Should I be on Discord? Shall we be on Twitter? Shall we be on LinkedIn? Shall we be on Instagram? It doesn't really matter. But what matters is that you're showing up, and we're being quite intentional, because if content is different for each different channel, and we are seeing for the first time ever Instagram, TikTok. You were doing some cool stuff with Midnight at the moment where they just really want to be on Instagram. So Midnight's like a privacy focused chain. And they really want to show up on Instagram, which is quite new. But I don't really think it matters which channel you're on. The consistency to show up, if we look at, Steven's podcast is the second biggest in the world. The first 4 years, he got 10,000 views. He got nearly 1 million subscribers in a month. But that is off the back of 6 years or 7 years of showing up every single Thursday. And I think a lot of founders come to us and go, what's the growth hack? Well, the growth hack is being 1% better than yesterday and showing up every single day. And we have this thing where, we were working with Google and they wanted to talk, they were selling their cloud infrastructure, and they wanted to talk to CTOs, very, very specific audience. So we were making all this content and we were getting 40, 50 people joining a webinar. That looks kind of like, wow, we're doing all this work for 40 people to watch it. But if they're the 40 decision makers that can actually buy your product, is actually really exciting. And if you think of this is a really cool room, sometimes online we get caught up with big numbers, and I see that in before VCs would be like, do you have 100,000 Twitter followers? But if we think of where that is in a marketing funnel, it's so high up, and that could be someone in a jurisdiction that your product's not allowed to use. It could be in a jurisdiction where your product's too expensive. And so I definitely think not worrying about the number of people, but more the quality of people that are engaged, and back to that traditional find your first 1,000 fans, bring them in. And when we look at Super Team, we can go anywhere in the world and text someone and be like, we're here. Not the super teams are, the core teams are quite small, but the community and the multiplier is amazing.
And even when you start thinking about those first few users, that's incredibly important for any startup. The typical journey is that you are finding those first, even 8 to 10 people who are your really ideal person and iterating with them. And then so just being able to find them, and then once you understand that avatar, being able to understand the channels that they're after, and then going after them. But then what you're talking about here of going direct and being able to make sure you're creating your authentic content for yourself, being able to grow those personal brands, being able to see that grow on a channel which the avatars that you're targeting are going into. It's we've been doing a lot more institutional stuff this year, and so LinkedIn is where they're at. And so we need to put attention there. You talked about Midnight going after Instagram because they want to be able general content to be able to allow people to understand blockchain and just financial infrastructure, and being able to kind of break down those barriers with there. And that type of authenticity is so important, right? In able to make people where they may not care about the startup, but they were more likely to care about the person behind it, and then they can attach into that, and then that's something unique that only the founder has, which no one else can replicate. You're the only other person who's going to be you, and so that's your superpower to be able to share with the world and allow them to understand as you're growing and building out that company.
And LinkedIn is a great platform because as a startup, you can post what you actually think. So many people can't post what they want on LinkedIn because of their corporate brand, and there's a lot of lurkers. So it's one of these platforms where there's less content than there are people with attention. So it's actually a really unique platform. But again, I'm pretty platform agnostic, and I think when we started marketing, people were coming to us with a white paper. It's very hard for me to go, Emma, what do you think about this product? Because, well, I'm very dyslexic, so I struggle to read, so I rarely read white papers. But it's very hard for me to go, what do you think about this kind of crazy problem? Because a lot of the time when we build something, we realize that the bridge doesn't work, and so our problem doesn't work. A lot of DeFi in 2021 didn't work because the idea was good, but the rails weren't good enough. And I think the one change that I've seen now is that people are able to vibe code an MVP a lot quicker, and don't be afraid to call up the best person you know and be like, use this. I signed a lot of NDAs, and I have really good Chinese walls, but I'm not going to steal your idea. I promise you, I'm struggling to do my thing, and in that sense, I'm obviously super pro London maxing, and I'm super excited about it. We've been doing that for a long time, but we almost need to channel our inner American here and go like, guys, what do you think about my idea? Like, tell me. And a great book that I recommend to a lot of projects I invest in is the Mum's Test. And how do you talk to someone if you ask your mum, what do you think of my event post? And she's like, oh, it's amazing, you're so good. But how do you phrase your question in a way that you're like, you're allowing people to give their honest opinion rather than being worried about hurting you. Like if Society's looking at stablecoins, she's like, oh, is this policy really good? And we're like, yeah, of course, because we're Team Society. But actually asking super users in a way that they can't hurt your feelings to get that constructive feedback is something that I see the best entrepreneurs really, really do. And it's that true user feedback, because we've drunk the Kool-Aid, we believe in our startup, we've given up our weekends, we're here working 24/7, Kat.
24/7.
That's crack building. But we believe in it, and we've got this thing. And what's amazing about marketing is we can pivot. We've got so much data, and like one point on data is we don't want to optimize over bad data. If you've only done 4 posts and you've got 30 views, we've got to use our, it's why we still need humans, not just AI, because there's no point optimizing bad stuff for bad stuff. Like, yeah, you can get the click-through rate up 2%, but if the click-through rate's terrible to start with and it's bad content, we still need to use our human. But we've got this data point. Are you going to use this? Why are you not going to use it? And I like to talk a lot about painkillers versus preemptive remedy. When people need a painkiller, it's a very good time to sell a product because they need it in that moment versus preventative well-being, which is actually much better and something that my brother's really into. And it's when with our products and solutions, thinking about how are we providing those painkillers to those people at that moment, because then they will just be like, yes. And then the final point on that is like, a lot of the time we're selling, but if we're building something good, we're not really selling, like pushing selling. We're more just explaining what we're building, why it works and why it's good for you, and explaining how it's going to solve your problem and listening to what their problem is. So that's like, I definitely think founders at the moment have that ability. You don't have to, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have fit, there was no one to talk to and there were no users. Right now, and you mentioned it a little bit, we have the institutional people coming. We've got TradFi looking at it, Revolut, big up Revolut, one of the best British businesses to come out for a long time, is fully crypto. I mean, they hide it a little bit because they don't, they're trying to get banking licenses, but, they're building on stablecoins.
And I think you made some really good points there, like this idea of when you're selling, it's actually educating them, understanding the right questions to ask, because like words are powerful. So how do you able to make sure you're asking the question that actually gets the truthful answer out of them? Because then that allows you to iterate properly when then you're working with those first few users. And being able to then do that and wrap it all up in, like, I think going back to that authenticity point. So like, this is actually the right user base. You are the right person. The founder market fit so important in a lot of these types of things as well. And that comes when you're authentically talking about and building the right thing. I think that's maybe like a unique, fun little tangent to go into, like, Harry, what are you interested in at the moment? Like, I know that you have Flight3 as the main thing that you run, but you do a bunch of other cool things as well.
So I'm trying to diversify a little bit from crypto, and we're building a members club in Cape Town, which is epic. So we've got a really cool house. It's tough work building physical space, but we've gone from 9 members to 81 in a year. And if anyone's in Cape Town, Solana have already been there, supported us. I love that. But yeah, we're running cool events there, and we have an event every Sunday, and that's epic. And so that was the start. And then we're launching Crypto Paddle League, which is going to be in 5 cities: Dubai, Sydney, New York, London, and Singapore. And
we're going to have a team here in London.
Yeah.
So if anyone's keen to paddle, let me know.
Yeah.
I want to win that league.
So yeah, it's going to be really competitive, but it's really about fun, and it's about, like, sometimes networking at events is a bit like, oh yeah, how you doing? Yeah, I'm definitely going to follow this up. Forget. Whereas I think the 7 weeks means that hopefully we'll get to know each other. It's got an amazing list of people: London Stock Exchange, Solana, Fidelity, loads of cool brands already in just season 1. And then I'm really excited about sort of sauna and cold plunge, and we're building a project called Lolu, which is we're building the infrastructure to let anyone run a sauna and cold plunge site. And then also imagine like Instagram meets Airbnb just for sauna and cold plungers. So wherever you go in the world, you can find a site. We've got 3 live, 2 more coming, and it caps again.
Yeah. We were there last Friday for a member event. We're here tomorrow as well. Tomorrow evening, if you want to be able to go.
I love it.
Jack, there's also a bit of feedback.
And so yeah, so I think as busy entrepreneurs, and especially when we're traveling a lot, like cryptos, we joke we live on a plane. Actually finding that way, not just to drink, is a really nice community aspect. And community is one of these things that like people come to Flight3 and they're like, build me community. I want to sell, and I'm like, but why? And they're like, we want to sell out an NFT collection. That's selling. Like a community is like a festival where you've got a whole range of people. You've got the builders, you've got the DJs, you've got the ticket sellers, you've got the volunteers, you've got the food thing. And when all these people come together, we turn a field into something meaningful. It's all it's quite a hedonistic movement, and we kind of see that on blockchain as well. Like it's a made up space, but there's all these different people building. And so I feel like community is not just about selling your product. It's actually about getting to meet people, helping each other out, paying it forward. You know, I'm part of Founders, and it's an amazing group, and I feel really lucky because being a founder is really tough, isn't it? You're the last to get paid. You forget that it's a bank holiday because it's you get to do what you want, and that's always what was quite funny about WeWork. There's loads of free beers, but no one wants to drink. You know, it's not that. Look, I work. I think Ripple must be one of the best companies in the industry to work for. You know, they're amazingly well funded, building great tech. They work really hard, but when it ends, it ends. So I think building that community and of like-minded people that can really help you, and we see that in Super Team. I see it's just amazing to see the companies that have come out and raised, you know, they've got their grants and everything, and then they've gone on to do big 10, 20, 30 million rounds. And I'm excited for that first unicorn.
Yeah, there we go. And that community spirit is so important, right? And even when you're building your own products, like that inner group of people who are like your super users, like being able to create space for them to connect with one another, because they're probably like-minded people. They'll probably enjoy that time to be able to support. And then that's how you build like those really deep connections with one another. I think that's been one of the things where it's been beautiful with Super Team, where we found that like our founders have been able to help one another, that win and help win mentality. But also with the co-working Fridays every single week, Jason, you've mentioned how like that's a really good spot to be able to like find that little familia. You know, the people that you can meet with every now and then, the people who are going through similar problems, you're at different stages, you're able to learn with one another. And it creates that space outside of your home, which can sometimes be a very lonely journey. You're able to connect with the people who are able to support you through that. And like you can be able to do that for your users as well. You can be able to create that space for them to be able to come together. And then that can be super powerful as you continue to grow out that brand. And to our earlier point of being authentic, like that's how you build your community.
Yeah, and on that point, you know, one of the biggest hacks of social is to hack social. Dark social, so dark social is when we make links that then get shared in a Telegram group that you can't actually share. That is magic. That is what we want. I want to make something so good that Kat gets the link and posts it in the Telegram group, and then everyone in the Telegram group sees it, because the algo, especially when we're starting out, can be very competitive. And it works where it judges you in the first 90, it shows like a little bit of your content to an audience, sees how it reacts. So if you can help boost the algo with friendlies and be like, please, you know, sometimes as a startup fund, you have to be a little bit shameful. Please like this post, you know, it really helps me. And having a group of people that can do that and are not like, oh God, here he is shilling again. And like, don't over abuse it. Don't be like every day 30 posts, but on the odd big post, if you share it in a dark social way, suddenly the algo's like, wow, this is popular. I'll show it to more people, and it gets out of that echo chamber when we're just starting. So I think finding that like-minded people and, you know, London maxing, that's what we're here for.
Well, 'cause like the London scene is growing a lot. And I've been love seeing this London Maxim thing because it's made my job a lot easier. Like, and it's great to be able to create these in spaces that people are coming together, because like that's so important, the environment and the experiences, so that you have the people to support you. You know, that's one of the big values that I like to share is win and help win. You know, because then that's how you are able to really make sure that as you progress forward in your career and in your life, you're making sure to be sharing with everyone. And I believe that then pushes you further up as well. And then that's like your accelerant in that how you're moving forward. And there's a real special case where you're able to then like find that like-minded group of people to be able to work that with. On this point, I like the dark socials, 100%. Like, do share, and like, please feel free to use our group chats that we have. There's a Solana UK one that has over 1,700 people. Go ham in that. If you're here at Build Station, you have permission to go do it. If you're in the member group, put in your big posts that you have there. You know, like we are also here to be able to help support. And I want to be one of your first retweets when you're putting out, to be able to help give you that little bit of a boost that you need. But then ultimately that will start compounding as more and more people in the space start to see it.
That's just because he wants more followers than me.
I have more followers than you.
Yeah. The apprentice becomes the master.
We had a little competition because I used to work at Zebu before it was Flight3, and he was always more followers than me, and I was always like, I'm gonna get it, I'm hunting you down. I was like, you had a head start, and it was only when I then joined, I got the boost to do it.
It's not over yet.
It's not over yet. And then I think when we just start talking about these like community side of things, one thing we haven't talked about, and one that you've done a lot, is IRL events. And you've done a lot with Zebu, being able to be here is like a really big flagship conference, but then also like traveling the world and seeing like how are you starting to see like the IRL space at the moment, and like the ROI, the opportunity for founders in breaking into even international or local events.
So IRL events are like amazing. There's a few, they're very hard to measure because as founders, we've got 27 different tasks to do, and meeting other founders and the events that are put on is all encompassing, you know? And so we have to be super intentional about what we want to get from the events. So for me, it's a lot of meeting my clients, it's getting my pulse on the ground, hearing what everyone's building, what everyone's feeling, where everyone's going. And then, of course, meeting potentially new clients. But IRL meetings, you know, you may not need a website tomorrow. So I may meet someone, then I meet them again, and then they'll remember me, and they're like, yeah. So it can be quite hard, unlike, let's say, paid media, where we get the dopamine hit straight away. If we put out Google ads, we get clicks on the website, we see how it converts. IRL events are a little bit more like spear fishing. And the big shift that we're seeing at the moment is, before there were 4 events and every single person went to those 4 events, we're seeing a lot more factions form. You know, if you're really into stablecoins, there's a stablecoin summit. If you're really into Insto over here, there's secret Insto events. If you're into like startups. So I think being intentional about why you're at the event, what you want to get, and value your time. You know, it's not the £1 grand on the flight, £2 grand on a hotel, 500 quid spending money. It's the, is it worth me feeling knackered for a week at the end of it? And I think for me, yes, it's really good. I'm lucky that the team's grown and like my day-to-day activity allows me to do that. But I think IRL events, and we're seeing it in Anthropic, doubling down massively on the Claude events team, they're going to be massive, because the final point on that is the cool thing about the web3 ecosystem is it's got a really unique, cool group of people that are building. And actually, when we're all in a room together, I'm like, yeah, sick. The
energy's there.
This is why we're building this, because, you know, sometimes we can be so heads down, and we can be, you know, one of my mentors explained to me, well, as a founder, we can't fly too high when we win, and we can't get too low when we lose, because otherwise the plane is like this. And so like a sort of an art is how we learn to, like, you know, I can go from one call where it's like, boom, big deal, next call, tough call, you know, and so learning to sort of cruise through the different heights is a really, really good skill, and I think it's one that I'm still learning. I have quite a high ADHD, so I can be like, and like actually learning and being around people that are going through that can be like, oh wow, they're building cool stuff. This is cool. You know, if you listen to the news right now, you think Web3 was dead. actually what I'm seeing is the serious companies are doubling down, they're investing, they're growing, they're getting ready for that. Not is my token going to pump, is my product going to work, am I going to make revenue? And so that is a really exciting maturity point, that we can get to a point where we can make revenue, we can start to match the value. I know it's obviously going to be tricky for other projects that launched earlier, and everyone's seen the charts of amount raised, revenue per day, can be quite scary. So we're approaching the point where people actually need to build good businesses rather than just good ideas. And we're always going to want people. You always want to irrationally go into new things in the hope that you hit it. But I think the maturity is actually exciting for us builders.
No, I think that's the big thing that's happened over this last year as well, that maturity in the space. And I think that's the bit, you talk about the revenue side of things, the tokens less important, how are you building a business that's generating revenue, how are you supporting the users? We can expand more out of the web3 bubbles now with the tech stacks that we have. And so it kind of creates the perfect storm and opportunity for you to be able to think bigger about the product that you're building and how you're really being able to go to that next part. But let's go to a couple different questions then from the audience. Who wants to go first?
Hey Harry, it's great to meet you and hear your story. My name is Jason. I'm building a product called Sesto that allows people to invest into thematic investment baskets on Solana. So my question for you is right now I think we're experiencing two different inflection points simultaneously. It's getting really easy to build products and build content around products. And simultaneously, people are developing sort of a banner blindness to what is generic in some sense. And so how do you kind of think about marketing in the next, I guess the next decade is a lot to ask, but maybe the next 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, when we were growing up on social media, I used to be able to go viral with business content on Facebook. It was mental. We hacked the algo, and it was just no paid spend. And then Zuck brought in paid ads. And if you weren't posting cat videos, your sort of business content just went doof and got no reach. So to your point about we as marketers have 9 different roles. We're content creators, we're writers, we're scheduling, we're strategists, and with 5 different channels, as marketers, we're stretched so thin, and keeping up with all of that, which every brand is doing, is very draining. So the introduction of AI is going to allow us to keep what I call that always on content, broadcasting content stuff. I don't care whether you've just done a partnership. I'm not stopping my scroll in the 10-minute break I have between meetings to hear about your partnership. I don't care. So that type of content, AI can help us schedule, it can help us create, it can help us show up. And then as marketers, we can go back to traditional Mad Men style and actually think of those big campaigns and those real amazing moments where we've really thought about what's our right to win, who are our target audience, and with your thematic basket, it's you don't need a lot of people to make that work at the start. And being really intentional about who those people are and making content that, vanilla content, we've got this filter now, don't we? We're just and it's so easy just to scroll through. So I think it's going to move really quickly, a bit made by hand. The Coinbase ad, I don't know if you saw that, where it could have been AI, but they made it with such craft, and the reach that's got has just shown that in an AI world, when everyone can do it, actually being authentic is amazing. Sometimes as an agency, we make content that looks really rugged, and it looks like we're shooting on an actual camera. We make it look like it was shot on your iPhone, put some shakes in there, so that, because people don't like people that are cheating and using an agency for their personal stuff. So putting that human touch, I think will help. But you're right. It is going to be that distribution is going to be the moat, and how you build that distribution. We always say you should take your audience off just Twitter. How do you get them to an email list? Once they're on your email list, they've given you that what I call an iceberg. Tech people love to talk to me right at the bottom of the iceberg about how this thematic basket's going to win. At the start, it's like this for this. And I'm like, oh, I like that. I'll engage. And then you can take me further and further down as I give you permission to tell me more and more. And so I definitely think owning our audience and taking it off TikTok or wherever you're getting your traffic from into that audience.
That makes a ton of sense. Thank you.
No worries.
How, talking about onboarding a Web2 audience into Web3, how do we fight the bad reputation that crypto space has? Because when I'm kind of like, when I'm telling people, I often say that I work in tech because it makes me sound like a scammer when I say that I work in crypto. So how do we fight that?
Yeah, so if we break it down, Web3 is actually really boring. It's like back-end tech. And I think I like the term Web3 because it meant I didn't tell people I worked in crypto, which makes you think of the Matrix. But to answer your question, we just need to make brands and products that work. We use a light switch every day. Every single person, most people don't know how it works, but they know they need light to walk around their house. And so many times when we've been talking to Web2 audiences, we've been explaining how electricity is running through the building and it's we've been talking about what the light and the electricity is, rather than being like, push this button. And so Web2 will come when something is 10 times better. Fun fact, you're more likely to get divorced than you are to change bank. So, it's a very, very sticky product because it's safe, you trust it, it's got your money in. And so once we build products that are so good, it's like, well, why wouldn't I use that? And we don't go to them being like, this is a this is the Google Flex. And then suddenly people are like, yeah, that makes sense. I cannot, we've gone on lots of different projects, and as native users, we still sometimes struggle to use native products. There's still hacks. VC paid me 5,000 USDC on the wrong chain. It's stuck in the ether right now. And that's like a VC to a Web3 marketing agency. It's quite scary, self-sovereignty. Not lots of people are ready for it. There's cool things like Zappo Bank that are coming, and I think as the infrastructure grows and the products become so good, big thing we're doing with Stand With Crypto at the moment, and for those that have been following in America, the Clarity Act, that's the big banks saying they don't want the yield to go to the users on the stable coins. That's where they're trying to block it. If you could get more interest using a stable coin wallet that's already in your existing Revolut account, you're like, well, why wouldn't I get 6% rather than 2%? And it's one button. That's the moment Web 2 comes, and that Web 3 just kind of comes the back end tech, and the brand leads a bit like with when I was in Monzo and Revolut in the first 10,000 users of both, and at that point we were talking about fintech. Now they're just banks. And I think when we hit that moment where our product, and it's on us to be less shit, like in a world where Aave is being coalition hacked, we're just about to get into DeFi, and then the biggest DeFi platform has been coalition hacked. They're like, oof, are we really going there? So we need to get better. The products need to be easier to use and less tech sensitive and more like result driven. And I think the regulation's helping as well as we're slowly going there.
Yeah, I think a really good example of this like Web 2, Web 3 one is Fuse Energy. So because their users have no idea there's any Solana on the back end. The whole point is that they're just giving you cheaper energy. And they're doing it because they're routing energy at different time windows, so the grid has less usage at those times, thus you get cheaper energy. Like super simple use case, but they're utilizing the benefit of our backend infrastructure to be able to set those incentives so that people don't just have to buy their hardware to get that benefit. They can also just like plug it in like Octopus Energy, and then they are incentivized to use it at those different times. And I think just the founders growing in those other circles, and potentially I'm curious of like the talent acquisition from these other circles as well, as your moat and way of breaking into then those traditional spaces. But yeah, to your point, it's just having those better products that can be able to withstand it. Who wants to go to the next question?
Hi Harry. I'm more curious about what led you off the path of like Web3 and more into South African membership clubs, to be honest. And I'm curious, like, yeah, what made you go like, yeah, this is South Africa for one, two membership clubs, and then also, are you gonna wrap it nice? You obviously mentioned that Solana has been there already. There's been some kind of event. Are you gonna like have it like NFT gated at some point? Like, where's the vision with that?
So, I take that on 3 points. So firstly, Cape Town is my favourite place in the world. I go half my team are based there. Luno was based there. My first day I went there, I actually got robbed. I didn't realise you couldn't walk around with your backpack on. It's like 101. You tourist. I was first day I worked. But anyway, so it was a tough start in Cape Town, but I absolutely love it, and I encourage any builders to go in January, February. It's loads of entrepreneurs. It's super cheap with the pound versus the rand, so your money goes really far, and I just love it there. So it's really active lifestyle. You can play paddle cheaply. It's just amazing. So. Firstly, I love Cape Town. Secondly, one of my ex-team members, a girl called Safia, she's the sort of active runner. I'm an investor and an advisor, and I love backing people that backed me, and I want to build out the network of people that I build with, and we're all build together. And she was like, I've got this great opportunity, and I was like, how could I say no? I'd love to take on the role as crypto advisor to the project. And thirdly, my dream is to, at the moment I'm very active in the agency, and that's a lot of my time. My true dream is to build a mega house in the mountains with like podcast studios, boardrooms, and I'll invest in companies and I'll help with their marketing strategy rather than the execution. Execution's really hard. Everyone knows we need more users. But what are you going to do on Monday to actually get those users? So it's really easy. And at the moment, I help people with strategy, but I really do the execution on a day-to-day basis with me and my team. And so, people have differing views, and if you're paying, well, I'm like, this is my view, but if you really want us to do that, that's what we'll do. So I'm looking forward to moving just purely to strategy. How you execute it is up to you. I'll invest and take a small equity stake, and then also take them skiing and do loads of cool stuff. And that's it's like a dry run for that. But yeah, I'm really excited. Token gated community stuff I think is interesting. Still haven't. It makes sense, and I'm hearing on the street NFTs are coming back. Apparently, JPEGs are coming back in fashion, but it will be a different thing, and I still think, back to Emma's point, I don't think the use case of that, that POAPs are so pointless, aren't they? What's the point of 4,000 of us having the same thing? I've got so many, and I've still not had this aha moment with a POAP yet. And maybe it will come, and maybe one day they'll have legacy value, but I still am waiting for that aha moment with the NFT sort of gated communities, and they were cool in. Me and Cap actually made loads of robot NFTs back in the day, Nearbots, 2023, one of the things. But yeah, hopefully that's a good summary.
Yeah, sweet, thank you.
Can I ask that question? Behind you. Kind of. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So also Bill, being as a dev in the community is something that you're losing the most because of the vibe code, because of everything. So I want to hear more about this dark social you said and the initial bootstrap. I think that this is something that would be very valuable to technical founders to know. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So on main social, everything's sort of measured by cookies, and the platform have a lot of analytics, and you can kind of see where your traffic's coming and what it's doing. But the algorithm is really hard when you have no followers and you have no reach to break out of. And so dark social is when people are grabbing your link and then sharing it in a community, in a Telegram, in a WhatsApp chat, in an email to someone. Oh, you've got to see this. And as marketers, what we really want to create is, if I had a one-on-one meeting with you and you're telling me about your product, it'd probably be really good. But as a dev, you can't speak to everyone. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to broadcast that message. And if people are sharing it, it's got their referral. And the second point is it just gets the algo while you're going, because they're your community and they share it. And then, you know, we all hate it when we put out a post and it gets no likes. It like damages our confidence of posting. And so while we're starting, it builds that momentum, it builds that confidence. And of course, if Cap reshares it, he's got a lot more reach than maybe a dev would have, because he's super connected in the Solana ecosystem, he's super connected in the London ecosystem, and he knows all the event organizers. So suddenly Cap sharing it gets you that reach. And because the alternative is you pay someone to post it, isn't it? And that's what we see. Like you sponsor an event, or you pay a KOL to share your post. But when we're starting out and we're still learning, actually getting your community to do that and to get you started, see what's working, building your audience, it's a really good way. And especially when the hard things for devs right now is everyone can build code so quickly. Actually getting the distribution and the users is becoming more of a challenge for them than necessarily just the coding.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. And yeah, big round of applause for Harry. Thank you for joining us, senor.
Always. I love your
Awesome.
Spanish.
Awesome.